Daniel 11:32 says, they that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Philip knew his God. He knew Christ. That's why he was able to present him with so much confidence that led to the exploits, signs, healings, deliverance, joy in the whole city. Because to know him, to know Christ, is to be known by him. John chapter 10, verse 14. John 10:14 said, I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. When you know him, and he knows you, the enemy will also know you. All those evil forces, they knew who Philip was. When they heard his voice, they knew this is not just one of those philosophers, none of those people who came to talk about 3 ways to success, 5 ways to prosperity. This fellow knows what he's talking about. In Acts chapter 19, verse 13 to 17, Acts 19, 13 to 17, the devil said, Jesus I know, Paul also I know. If you know him, you'll be known of him, and the enemies will know you. Which is why in Philippians 3, verse 7 to 10, Philippians 3, 7 to 10, Paul was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice that I might know him. Was willing to pay any price to know him. So the question this morning is, do you know him? That's the first question. Then the witness must be able to prove that because I know the defendant, I know what he can do. In Luke 1 verse 37, Luke 1:37, Philip knew that with God nothing shall be impossible. According to Jeremiah 32 verse 27, Jeremiah 32 verse 27, he was fully aware that he is the God of all flesh. There's nothing too hard for him. Several years ago, when we were still just starting off, I had all these young boys and girls who formed a little club way back at Ebute-Metta that we call Fishers of Men. And I told them, go out to Jews, go into any house. If they try to argue with you, ask them, is there any sick fellow here? If there is one, bring the fellow. If you pray and the fellow is healed, then you believe us. They went with the assurance that the fellow we are talking about is the God of all flesh, and with him nothing shall be impossible. So they go to a house in Otta. Some of you know the story. One or two of you were with me there. And they began to preach Christ. And they discovered that the man they were preaching to was the head of all the herbalists in Otta. And Otta is the headquarters of witches, for those of you who do not know. And he looked at them and said, well, because you are young, I won't deal with you. Because you shouldn't come into this kind of house and begin to talk about any other God. He said, I'm the God here in Otta. So they challenged him. Have you any problem you've not been able to solve? And he said, well, he had a wife. I think it was number 17th wife. And anytime he had a wife and the wife became pregnant, the witches and wizards would come to claim their salary. The woman was bleeding. He had tried everything because he had fallen in love with this one and nothing happened. So the little one said, bring her, let's pray. They prayed a simple prayer and left the place. Within minutes, as they were going from house to house, the old man came, saw them and shouted, come, 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 because the bleeding had stopped. They presented a God that can do anything. And the old man surrendered his life to Jesus. Many of you remember this story. The reason many of us can't go and witness with boldness is we're not even sure what the God we say we believe can do. In John chapter 9, verse 24 to 25, John 9, 24 to 25, when they were querying the man who was born blind, he made a statement. Whether Jesus is a sinner or not, I don't know. But one thing I know, whereas I was blind, now I see. I know what the defendant can do from personal experience. In Mark chapter 5, verse 1 to 20, Mark 5, verse 1 to 20, when Jesus set the madman of Gadara free, he told him, go and tell your people. Check the Bible very well. That madman who was made whole preached or witnessed with so much effect that those who drove Jesus out of their country because they were frightened were waiting for him when he returned. Because the madman could say, at least you knew me. See who I have become. The one you chased out is the one who said, set me free. I know from personal experience what he can do. In John chapter 4, if we take it from verse 28, just say 23 to 39. John 4, 28 to 39. The woman at the well went to town and said, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. The town people followed her. At the end of the story, the Bible said, many believed. One of the things that everyone who wants to be a witness for Jesus Christ should do is you share your personal experience. I know him. I know what he can do. Number 3, the witness must be able to say, I know what he cannot do. I know what he cannot do. You accuse this man of stealing? No, it's not possible. I know what he can do. I remember years ago when some people were trying to rope in one of the great men of God in Nigeria. They plotted against him to say that he was running guns. I said, I know this man. He can't do that. I know what he can do. I know what he cannot possibly do. In John chapter 8, verse 3 to 11, John 8, verse 3 to 11, a witness of Jesus Christ can say, he can't hurt a fly. I know him. When they brought a woman to him, caught in adultery, and they were going to stone her to death, John 8, 3 to 11, he would not allow them. He won't hurt a fly. We can say from Luke 7, verse 11 to 15, Luke 7, 11 to 15, he will not allow sorrow to go unchallenged. That's the story of the widow of Nain, who had an only son. Luke chapter 7, verse 11 to 15. When he saw the widow who lost an only son, he wouldn't allow the journey to the graveyard to continue. He stopped the sorrow. So I can say to someone who is sad, if I'm witnessing, I know Jesus. He will wipe away your tears. From John 12, verse 1 to 11, John 2, verse 1 to 11, that's the story of the wedding in Canaan of Galilee. I can boldly say, he will not allow a reproach. I know what he can do. He was invited to a wedding, he was in the MC, but when there was going to be a reproach, he intervened. According to Matthew 15, verse 14 to 21, Matthew 15, 14 to 21, which is the story of the Syrophoenician woman whose daughter was grievously vexed of the devil. Matthew 15, 14 to 21. I can boldly say, he will not allow the prayer of faith to go unrewarded. He will not allow the prayer of faith to go unrewarded. Matthew 15, 14 to 21. The defendant or the witness of the defendant should be able to say, I know him, he is too compassionate to commit the crime you say he committed. He is full of compassion. Mark 1, verse 40 to 45, Mark 1, 40 to 45 tells us the reason he cleansed the leper was because he was moved with compassion. In Mark chapter 10, verse 46 to 52, Mark 10, 46 to 52, he waited to attend to a blind man, a blind beggar. Mark 10, 46 to 52. Because the beggar cried to him for mercy. So I can say, he's too compassionate to do the terrible thing you said he did. And then the witness, if it's going to be successful, must be able to produce evidence. Jesus said in John chapter 4, verse 48, John 4:48, he said, except you see signs and wonders, you won't believe. You cannot be a successful witness if you cannot produce evidence, signs, wonders. In John 11, verse 39 to 45, John 11, 39 to 45, the Bible said when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, many believed on him. They saw undisputable signs and wonders. Several years ago, we went to hold a crusade in Holland. As at that time, if you are talking of a nation that was cold spiritually, Holland was number one. I mean, you can walk into any shop and buy marijuana. They have, just as you have tea parlors, they have parlors where you can come and sit down and smoke. They have been marrying men and men, and I'm talking of years ago. The crowd came to see this African fellow who, what is he wanted to say? Let's go and have some fun. But somebody brought a man from the hospital with all the gadgets attached to his body, everything. They brought him. I don't know the purpose. Probably they brought him to disprove anything we want to say. We've just started preaching, there was singing, etc., and the poor fellow was in pain. By the time we got the microphone, he was too tired of waiting and said, take me home. By the time he got to the door, the power of God hit him. He threw away everything, got on, and there was no need to preach anymore. We see something here. And you trust, all I did was just give the altar call. Today, Holland is the headquarters of our churches in Europe, the same place. The witness must be able to produce evidence. In Acts chapter 3, verse 1 to 11, Acts 3, verse 1 to 11, Peter healed a man who was born lame. Acts 3, 1 to 11. So by the time we got to Acts chapter 4, verse 6 to 14, Acts 4, 6 to 14, he was able to say to the elders of Israel, if you are querying us as to by what means this man is now made whole, let me tell you, the man Jesus that you crucified, that God raised from the dead, is the one doing this work. Somebody said, you can't argue when there is evidence. You can't argue with evidence. So that brings us to this big question. How come we have not been as successful as we should be as witnesses of Jesus Christ? It's probably because we've gone witnessing without the help of the Holy Spirit. Because Zechariah chapter 4, verse 6, Zechariah 4, verse 6 says, is not by power, not by might, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Jesus told us categorically in John 16, verses 13 and 14. John 16, 13 and 14. He said, it is the Holy Ghost that will glorify me. Is the one who will produce the proof. Is the one who will give them the evidence. Because when you consider Philip, in Acts chapter 6, verse 1 to 5, Acts 6, 1 to 5, one of the qualifications of Philip was that he was a man full of the Holy Spirit.